지난번에 이제 한 달 좀 안 되는 접수를 시켰거든요. 그래서 제가 이 집회 끝나고 제가 전화를 드릴게요. 접수 끝나고 장로님하고 김명진 장로님하고 세 분이 시작을 했기 때문에 다른 분이라면 저는 의견이 잠깐 있어가지고 장로님 기도해 주시고
I don't think I can
예. 잠시만요. 그두 사람이 두 교수 한국에서 갔으니까 아무래도 이쪽 여기서만 이쪽 맞으면 이쪽하고 이렇게 해가지고
I think it's kind of curly. I don't
I'm sorry, do you know if this is going to be in English? Huh? Do you know if this is going to be in English?
Hey, it's already, it's all right. I'm always, I gotta stay away. Đi về liền.
Anyways, how are you? So, nice. How are you? This part is like, that's the
장로님 그럼 지금 비주하는 몇 년째인가요?
like that's like the moment. Yeah, obviously.
꽤 20년이 됐네요.
I tried to do
권사님
That's not what it was. What is going on? You just take the screenshot.
It's so bad.
Oh,
I think that thing says live.
when we go back, on Saturday.
There's one piece that, from what I see.
Asian technology. Right after this, you're gonna get an email from Byron.
No, it's fine. You know when you do this? Wait, so how is this
No, you got
You can put here too.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you.
So you have it over here. Yeah. Okay.
You can just silently say but I volunteer to ask. Well, Alex, I'm going to say
Từ khi mà năm ngoái á, là anh John anh mua tại vì cái chuyện ở ngoài cửa hàng mình á lên lại với vài ấm cho nên anh đi từ năm ngoái cho nên anh lấy cái đó là của anh luôn. That's exactly the reason I got it.
I know. I guess that. I think afterwards, like when you guys clean up, is when you guys. Because right now we already came on everything else. Tomorrow at lunch, Rachel, when you're eating, you know she's right in front of you. It's because I also usually don't have glasses, so you're here, Janice is right here, and I'm right here. Okay, I'm gonna say hi. I swear, because when I don't have my glasses on, anyone that's like 3 feet away, I'm a little blind, so if you like look like this, you can. I don't know.
Do you guys want any signs?
Sure.
Okay.
Oh, hello.
Good to see you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, great. Awesome. Do you guys want any signs?
Yeah, I'm yeah.
I'm hanging this above my bed. Good night, world. I'm Korean American conservative. Not to be a Korean American conservative. Somebody famine my house. Is this a debate? Not sure. No, I.
Oh,
I think it's Jamie. I'm not sure. I think it's I know it's you, but I didn't know what I want to do.
Wait, what do you call it when you like, oh, I gotta establish my authority?
Establish your authority.
Yeah. As I'm literally obviously we're gonna have to no problem. I'm not
I feel like I should be a little bit more prepared. We're gonna set up
Yeah. Next week.
oh, you want a meal? Sorry.
시험분들이 가는 바람에 미주 한인제도 백분 기업사 앞에 모르니까 안 되잖아요. 그래서 내가 그걸 보여서 미주 한인제 그래서 내가 초대를 했더니
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
그럼 그 워싱턴이 개인전이야. 왜 사람들이 한인 재단을
Thank you. Good. Yeah, yeah.
You don't even like your power.
Yes, okay. Go ahead next to him. You. Okay, go ahead.
Hello, honey.
저는 이번에 그 이승만 그 총회를
Cái này là của Yes.
강연회를
Neymar?
I'm
actually Brazilian. I'm not Korean. I'm a Brazilian American.
I
I love everybody, and it just doesn't match. My experience in this community is I think I'm a Brazilian. Okay, I'll dance. Did I? I'll actually
고문이라든지
Why don't you go Korean? But you need to why not which job
지금 이제 안개 이승만 박사와 관계된 여기 손이라든지 그런 뿌리 있나요?
Okay, right here. They're too wide. Thank you.
그래도 장관이 워싱턴
Okay, yes.
중요하잖아요.
Yeah, okay.
어떻게 보면 이 미국 전체 이승만 기념사업에는 워싱턴 지난번에 좀 말했지만 동안에 그래도 뭐랄까 훈련을 여기서 인생을 했으니까 아무래도 한국이 좀 우리가 중요하죠. 장군이 이번에 맡으시는
왜 안 나오셨어요? 아니 그 나오셨는데 아니요. 죄송해요. 다시 할 때 찍을 때 같이 찍으셔야 돼요. 왜안 나오셨어요? 빨리 시작하세요. 빨리 시작하세요.
You guys trying to get in there for a photo?
Oh, that's mine.
Oh, so
English, yes. You're Korean.
여기 앉으세요.
이 카메라를 여기다
Oh, no, no,
네.
no, you can't do that, okay? It's like, go ahead.
We're gonna take time to do things, so we're gonna start right now, and I give it to the president of the Miyares Association. And
Okay, let me go get a little bit more for you. You can get your leg on.
Good evening. My name is Rosa Park. I'm the president of the Korean Foundation Greater Washington. Welcome. I'm going to speak in Korean first, shortly. 오늘 이 자리에서 참석해 주신 기준 여러분께 진심으로 감사드립니다. 우리의 목소리를 공정하기 위해서 먼 길도 마다하시고
Let me put this guy on like that.
그리고 우리 미국의 첫 이민자들은 종교의 자유를 찾아서 이곳에 축복받은 미국 땅으로 생명의 유혹과 그리운 고향을 등을 쥐고 미국에 와서 나라를 세웠습니다. 모든 이들에게 인종과 종교에 관계없이 기회의 나라, 평등과 민주주의가 보장되는 나라, 이 아름다운 미국. 우리들의 선조들은 이것을 지키기 위해서 노력과 헌신을 다해왔습니다. 그러나 아직도 우리 앞엔 인종적인 갈등과 집단주의와 불평등의 문제들이 산재하고 있습니다. 이런 문제들로 우리 사회가 아파하고 또 우리의 희망인 차세대가 아픔과 병을 들어가고 있습니다. 우리 이 기성세들은 정말 저희들이 부끄럽고 또 이런 문제가 계속해서 몇십 년, 몇백 년을 왔던 것은 정말 부끄러운 일이라고 저는 생각합니다. 오늘 미팅은 함께 소통하면서 함께 백일책을 모색할 수 있는 자리였으면 합니다. 특별히 오늘 이 자리를 마련해 주신 해럴변 버지니아 산업부 부장님께 감사를 전하고 싶고요. 또 이 미팅은 한인 커뮤니티와 샷에 대한 그분의 사랑과 열정을 그리고 다양한 목소리를 전하고자 하시는 그분의 마음과 노력으로 이 자리를 마련하게 됐습니다. Good evening. Thank you for being with us today. A special thanks to you, our town hall speaker, from the state of Virginia, Attorney General Jason Miyares. Thank you. America is a land of immigrants from all over the world. People come here because they believe and realize that this land offers opportunity to be free, to be prosperous like no other place. The first major wave of Asian immigrants occurred in the late 19th centuries. Since then, Asians have established themselves as a successful, vibrant community work in all facets of society. The Asian and Pacific Islander community of Northern Virginia has rapidly grown into one of the largest in the country. While Asians have generally done well, there are problems specific to the community that are important and need to be announced. In the finest traditions of democracy, that is why we are here. We wish to exercise as our right as a citizen to meet our governor representatives and to speak about our problem and then our concerns. We are all pleased to have Deputy Commissioner Harold Byun from the Brazilian Department of Labor and the Industry to serve as monitor for our meeting. Please welcome to Commissioner Rodriguez.
Thank you, everybody. I want to this time introduce, this is the first time Asian community to this microphone.
The cell phone.
Get to the middle, toward the middle.
Okay, so this is the first time we are having the Asian community, the largest population in Northern Virginia. And this is, we having honor to have this first time ever Attorney General come up here in our community, speaking out and hear what your concerns are. And especially, he is coming from immigrant family. His parents coming from Cuba. And so he understands when he grew up as being immigrant, and he was a success story. And this is the first, actually, the Attorney General from immigrant in Virginia history. And he was a 6 years of a House of a Delegate in hometown in Virginia Beach area. And then he became Attorney General. And before then, he was a prosecutor in their hometown. So you can read about him more rather than I speaking here. And I really have this honor to have our Attorney General, Jason Miyares.
Can you hear me with the lapel, or I guess I need this? It is an honor to be here. It's an honor to have this conversation. But I first want to say thank you. Thank you for welcoming me here. And this is what's going on right now in our schools. I look forward to talking about that and other issues. But I just want to tell you a little bit about my heart. One of my earliest memories, when I kind of understood that my family was a little bit different, was as a child, my mother came to the kitchen and she asked me to teach her the Pledge of Allegiance. And that's when I thought, well, why don't you know the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States? And she had to learn it to become a U.S. citizen. And I remember as a child being in that federal courthouse and that amazing magical moment where she became a U.S. citizen. And as a child of immigrant, I also knew, because I heard it almost every day, that education was the doorway to the American dream. And that's what makes America, America. I love to say that the United States is a nation of second chances. We've given more second chances to more people from more countries and more backgrounds than any country that it's ever existed. And that's what I call the American miracle. It doesn't matter where you came from. You come here and you achieve your dream. And education is the pathway, but if you work hard, you can achieve that dream that sometimes was denied you. I was meeting with some folks earlier today, and my mother's dream was to become a doctor. She was never able to do that in Cuba. She left Cuba literally penniless and homeless. And she's always been disappointed I became a lawyer and said no. But I know that for so many parents, you live through your children's dreams. Their dreams become your dreams. And your desire more than anything else is that there's not going to be a barrier, that they can achieve that dream. And it breaks my heart that I'm hearing from so many Virginians that say my child's being denied some of their dreams because of just who they are. That's not right. And so I love to say as Attorney General, I view our role as we're the people's protector. Whether it's on major, violent crime, or whether it's going after big corporations taking advantage of people, or if it's something as simple as a a mom that's heartbroken because their daughter's dream is being taken away from them simply because of their ethnic background. And so as the people's protector, that's why I'm here. I want to hear from you, and I'm really honored that my friend Harold is gonna interview me. I admit I've never been on the Oprah Winfrey Show, so I feel like it's a little intimidating, but I'm really honored that you're here, that you've welcomed me. It's an honor to be here and have this discussion with Harold, and then hear from you. So thank you all so much for being so gracious and for having me. Blessings to you.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and also that Asians are actually. This is yours. Asian. Can you hear me? Yeah. Asians are very quiet, culturally different people from. They are not speaking out. They are not loud, and that's whatever they asking to do, we do. This is the first time that the high level of Virginia, actually Attorney General come up and listen to our community, and this is a good first step. So we're going to be continuous to have this kind of conversation with the Attorney General and Lieutenant Governor and the governors. But first series is Attorney General recognized this issue in Northern Virginia. So I'd like to ask, starting with some questions we've been together last week, and I will ask that questions, and then I will open up to, after these questions, I open up the floor, and then you can ask some questions. So we got plenty of time, and thank you so much. Here is go. And first question, what is the role of your Attorney General Office of Civil Rights, and how can people file the complaint with your office?
Well, the Office of the Civil Rights, when I say that we're the people's protector, the best way to contact through our Civil Rights Office if there's been discrimination, either in education or in the workplace, is to go to the Office of Attorney General. You can just Google Virginia Office of Attorney General, and there's a Civil Rights section, and you could submit your complaint, and it's confidential. It's anonymous. I know there's been several individuals that have come to me and said, we would be nervous about having our name somewhere. We will keep it confidential, but we have a wonderful civil rights division, and that's why we exist. Any form of bigotry against anyone, either because of their religious faith or their racial background or their ethnic background, there's a host of protected classes in the Virginia law, and that's why we exist. And so it's very simple to go to our website. And I met earlier today with a round table with leaders and concerned parents in the Indian American community, and they express how do we express and put things on your radar that can be confidential. And if it's through our website, it's going to be confidential. I can promise you that. And we look and review every case that comes in.
Thank you. So the immigrant community is sometimes very hard to reach, and the system they don't know, and just to call some. You're willing to have some kind of hotline for the Asian community, maybe that?
We would be up for a hotline, but what we have found is by doing it through our web portal, everything is organized. But absolutely, and our goal is to make it as easy as possible for people to reach out to us, and that's going to be our goal.
Okay, thank you. Second question here is that, what is your general philosophy and vision for the education in Northern Virginia,
Yeah. Well, we got started on the reviewing the policies because a lot of parents there's a wonderful group called the Coalition for TJ, and it was parents that came to me early this year, and they were very concerned because they felt that their children were being denied admissions. As we know, Thomas Jefferson High School, it's a public school, but you have to apply for science and technology. And several parents were coming to me saying, our child's being denied admission because they're Asian American. As one mom told me, my daughter has done everything right since the first grade, has studied so hard, and I'm realizing her dream of going to the Thomas Jefferson School for Science and Technology, that her dream is likely going to be denied her, not because of anything she has done, but simply because she's Korean American. And so we're trying to unravel that. We know that in Fairfax, they hired an equity consultant. We know they paid this equity consultant $455,000 for about 9 months worth of work. We know this equity consultant directive to the school district was equal outcomes for every student without exception. That was what the equity consultant advised, not what I advised, but what they advised. They also had directed them that to get to these equal outcomes, you have to be willing to treat some students unequally. The actual language they used was purposefully unequally. And so when this was brought to my attention, I thought this potentially violated our anti-discrimination law in Virginia called the Virginia Human Rights Act, which says you can't treat people purposefully unequally. And we started to do the investigation on Thomas Jefferson High School, which used to have a merit-based admissions policy, which was if you have the grades and you have the test scores, you can go. We know that once they went from a merit-based admissions policy to an equity-based admission policy, we saw about a 20-point decrease of Asian enrollment at Thomas Jefferson High School in just 1 year. And so that's what was causing so many parents to come to me, worried about this admissions policy. And then we saw the National Merit Award recognition that came to me, in which at first we were told it was just one school. Now we know it was 17 schools. And we know that over 1,000 students were affected, and over 70% of these students were Asian students. And at least for me, I can't imagine the agony as a parent when you've seen your loved one who has worked so hard not to be recognized. And I worked all 4 years through college. How you pay for college is as stressful as getting into college. And we know of at least one Virginia school that if you receive this national merit recognition, you get free tuition. We calculated it's worth about $92,000 total over 4 years. Think about that. Somebody that if they knew they had received this recognition could have gone to college for free, and they were never even told. That was frustrating. And so that's why we're having this investigation. Did this policy of equal outcomes for every student without exception, including treating some students unequally, did that translate into purposefully discriminating against our Asian students for admissions at TJ and also to recognize them with these national merit recognition? And so that's how it got on my radar. I think it goes against what we should believe as Americans. Dr. King's dream was that we treat everybody by the content of their character, not the color of their skin. And I want you to achieve your dream. I want education's a doorway to the American dream. No one should have that doorway closed because of who their racial or ethnic background or their religious background, any other protected classes we have in Virginia. So when I say we're the people's protector, that's what we're taking on this issue, because I think it's such an important issue, and it goes against, I think, that idea of America being that second chance, and that's why we're here.
Thank you for that. We will continue about this, continuously related this issue. This is big for Asian Americans. So the other question is, crime has been higher than normal here in Northern Virginia. How is your office working to improve public safety in Northern Virginia?
Well, it has been a huge problem. We've seen an uptick in a host of crime in different pockets in Virginia. We've seen it in Northern Virginia. We have, I think there is a misnomer you hear sometimes that they're, quote, victimless crimes. And you have some times where some of the local prosecutors will choose not to fully prosecute, say, grand larceny or other larceny-related crimes. It's very, very hard on our businesses. It has been said that poverty can produce crime, but this is absolutely true. Crime produces poverty. Businesses don't locate in high crime areas. And so if I'm a small business owner, if I'm that person, then I'm the first one to get there in the morning. And I'm the last one to leave at night. And I'm trying to meet payroll. And I'm having 10 to 15% of what's on my shelf stolen from me. That is not a victimless crime. That's hurting my ability to provide for my family. And so bringing both attention to it, and then, you know, we have 21 different sections in my office. So we have consumer protection, we have civil rights. We also have major crimes and emerging threats. So we have cross-designated the governor, Governor Youngkin, and as we announced Operation Ceasefire, and so we have announced an initiative where we are cross-designating prosecutors out of my office in the U.S. Attorney's Office to go after repeat violent offenders. Because if you want to lower crime, you have to go and get off the street the repeat violent offenders. But I will tell you, it was frustrating. I love doing town halls. I love to hear from people. I think the most important quality in a leader is just listening. And I did a town hall with the Fairfax Police Association. And they were so frustrated. They were frustrated because they felt like it was becoming a bit of a catch and release program. They would arrest people, they had changed the position, they changed the law in Virginia on bond. They made it much easier for people, it's being much harder for victims to come forward. But there are entire categories of crimes that just weren't being prosecuted anymore. And that frustrated them greatly. And so, you know, I'm a big believer we have to work with law enforcement, not against law enforcement. The governor is putting an enormous amount of money. I'm a huge passionate believer in community policing, where officers are within the communities, people know who they are, they feel comfortable sharing what's happening. But you can't do that when you have 10, 20, 30% vacancy rates, where you just can't get people to be in law enforcement anymore. So boosting pay and recruiting officers from other states to come here to work. And then changing some of these laws that made it really, really hard for officers to do their job. I think that's important as well. So working with law enforcement is a huge part, having these prosecutors to go after and get repeat violent offenders off our street, and then recognize for our retail and our small business owners, larceny-related crimes hurt them, hurts their family, hurts their dream, and make sure that people are held accountable for that as well.
Especially in Northern Virginia, we have Eden Center, is the Vietnamese hub, and here is the Annandale, and the center there is a Korean businessman, and any kind of aware of any gang violence and things that, and I wish that, you know, state, you know, looking at more closely on that aspect. Okay, this question coming from our audience also, public safety question. I'm running a restaurant business in Annandale, Virginia. The COVID-19 pandemic lead to economic uncertainty and public safety concern. So our hours has to be reduced, which affect our profit. What can state of Virginia do to improve safety for store owners and their customers?
Yeah, COVID-19 has been really hard for all of us. And the way I put it is, our big, bold, diverse American family has been through a lot the last 2+ years. And COVID-19 has been very, very hard. It has been hard on our business owners. It's been hard on our families. It's been hard on our kids. You know, I remember touring a high school in Prince William County, and they said they were allowing all of the freshmen, all the juniors, to attend prom that year as a reward. I said, that's a little unusual. Why? And they said, for our juniors in high school, this is their first year of high school. And so if you've ever had a loved one that has struggled with depression, or a loved one that has struggled with addiction, they will tell you social isolation is the worst box you can ever be put in. And we did that to 300 million Americans. And now we're getting out of that, but we have an addiction crisis and a mental health crisis, and layer on top of that what our businesses went through. And so I am a passionate believer in having a bottom-up, not a top-down economy. 2/3 of all new jobs created in America are created by small business owners. And I had the honor of chairing a poverty commission when I was in the House of Delegates. And I looked at the root causes of poverty, and most importantly, what lifts people out of poverty. And what I realized is, other than hearing the words, "I love you," the most important words a human being can ever hear in their life is, "You're hired." That's transformative. There is a mental health benefit to work as well. And we have the lowest labor participation rate we've had in decades. We have several million able-bodied males that are not working. They're not in the workforce. They did a survey, and they estimated about 45% of these individuals are struggling with addiction. So how do we get people back to work? We have to deal with the addiction crisis. You have to deal with the mental health crisis. You also have to make it easier as government to, how do I make it easier, not harder, for small business owners to say those amazing transformative words, "You're hired," to more and more people. And sometimes it could be regulation, it could be taxation, it could be litigation. And how do you make it easier, not harder, for people to expand and thrive and hire people? And that's a big philosophy I know that I have and the governor has, is how we're going to make it easier to have that bottom-up economy that people aren't looking, and they shouldn't be looking over their shoulder either in fear. If I'm a small business owner, I shouldn't be having patrons that come to visit my shop worried about their safety, because guess what? They won't want to come to your business if they're worried about their safety. So how do we make sure law enforcement as well is empowered in that way?
Thank you. This time I'd like to open the floor. And so I think that Ms. Lee, you would have a question?
저렇게 진행하면 빠르.
안녕하세요. 반갑습니다. 2020년 통계를 보면은 AAPI 증오 사건에서 버지니아주가 11위를 차지한 아시아 범죄가 많은 주가 되었습니다. 특히 여성분들하고 노인들, 노약자들의 상대로 많이 일어나고 있거든요. 이런 범죄가 발생할 시 강력한 대책과 또 어떤 대책이라든지 방안이 있는지요?
A particular concern for women and elderly. What state measures are in place or proposed to reduce such crime?
Yeah, I think that a lot of what I hear as far as the anti-Asian hate is, it's almost generational. It starts in our schools. you hear the stories of students that are mercilessly picked on and bullied in our schools. And you know, the tragic part of America, which we've given so many second chances, but there are people that are ignorant. I remember the first time somebody called to my house in high school, my mother picked up, and then I got on the phone, they said, wow, I didn't know you had a maid. Because they thought just because she had an accent, a very thick accent. And that, realize there's ignorant people out there. But then you also see the bullying that happens, which I have no tolerance for. And that is an initiative that we're also seeing, is to really emphasize in our schools a sense of discipline. I shouldn't have a situation where I had a parent shared with me that their daughter, all 4 years of high school, never once felt comfortable going to the bathroom by herself. So safety, I think, in our schools and anti-bullying policies in our school is paramount. We have something in the Attorney General's office where we partner with the schools. It's called Virginia Rules. And it really is teaching our kids good citizenship, which means treating people with respect, treating people with dignity. One of the articles of my faith is Imago Dei. It's a Latin term. I'm not smart enough to speak Latin. But it simply means image of God. What it means for me is it means every person that I ever meet, no matter where, no matter what their circumstance, has amazing intrinsic value. It also means they have amazing potential. So nobody should be having that potential hindered by either bullying in schools or anti-Asian hate in the general public. Now the key to stopping that, I'm a big believer, is you go after the people that are committing these acts of bigotry. If it's in the civil space, you take them, and that's where we have our Office of Civil Rights. If they're crossing into violence, they need to be prosecuted, and they need to be held accountable. Because nobody in America should be looking over their shoulder in fear of being attacked simply because of who they are. That is wrong. It goes against everything I believe at my core. One of our missions in our office is respecting the dignity of the individual. And that's part of our goal. When we talk about being the people's protector, respecting the dignity of every individual so they're not looking over their shoulder in fear. That's the opposite of who we believe, of what we believe as Americans.
So I'm actually a freshman attending TJ right now, and I've known a lot of people, as well as myself, that have been influenced by these issues like that you've addressed that have been regarding with academic and admissions. And I wanted to ask that I've noticed that a lot of these minority groups have been have had occasions where they're really underrepresented. What are some of your plans or next steps for us students now and the future generation to continue pursuing their identity and not to give up on their dreams right now?
Well, I mean, I think my biggest concern is that we hear this word equity all the time. But equity without excellence is emptiness. If you mean by equity, equal opportunity, I believe in equal opportunity. If you mean by equity forced equal outcomes, that's the opposite of, I think, what a healthy pluralistic society should look for. It's an opposite of the American dream. And so I think that's important. You can have two truths at the same time. You can passionately believe in an equal opportunity, but you can also say, we are not going to have forced outcomes. I met with the round table earlier today that I had with some different leaders from the Indian American community, and they were telling me at TJ that they are seeing a drop in enrollment in advanced calculus classes. That the number of students that used to be enrolled in, I think it was Calculus 3, it was an advanced college level course, they were actually going to shrink the number of classes. Now I'm going to work to confirm that. But if that's true, that's not holding ourselves to a standard of excellence. And I don't believe that you can achieve a quality of opportunity by somehow practicing reverse discrimination against other groups. I don't think that's healthy. I think that goes against everything we should want and believe as Americans. And the other thing that's so disturbing me is hearing the stories that was shared with me of students no longer wanting to immigrate to the United States because they felt like they would be discriminated against in their academic pursuits. That students in India that a generation who used to want to come to the United States to immigrate and achieve their dreams, that they no longer want to, they'll go to Australia, they'll go to other countries. That's tragic. 2/3 of all new PhDs in this country are first-generation immigrants. The brilliant and the genius of this country is that we have people and immigrants that come here that want to pursue their dream, and they invent and they thrive and they're entrepreneurial and they're getting PhDs and they're opening new businesses. That's the genius of what this country is. The idea that instead of coming to the United States where they used to think they could achieve their dream, but now they're going to other countries because they think, I think I'll get a better shot at achieving my dream in Australia or New Zealand. That breaks my heart because they're not coming here. I want that drive and that energy that you see with our new Americans of every background. I want them here. And so that's what breaks my heart. And so my staff will tell you my favorite thing to do as a public official is to speak at naturalization ceremonies. It was my earliest memory seeing my mother became a U.S. citizen, and my always end every time I get to share with them. It is the honor of my life to welcome you to our new American family. And they're so hungry. They're so grateful. I tell my daughters, gratitude is the most underrated of all human traits. Ingratitude is the ugliest. Gratitude is the most underrated. And new Americans have such gratitude for what this country is. I want them to come here. And so that's why I'm passionate about this issue. And I think you can have both truths at the same time, but I thank you for your question.
안녕하세요. 스탑 아시안 헤이트라는 슬로건은 뭐 긍정적이고 밝고 그런 느낌의 슬로건은 아니라고 생각합니다. 그래서 버지니아 교육부에서 공식적으로 프로텍 아시안 립 아니면 뭐 테이크 케어 아시안 같은 긍정적인 슬로건을 만들어서 많이 홍보하는 거에 대해서는 어떻게 생각하는지 질문드립니다.
The Stop Asian hate slogan is a negative connotation, and she's saying that protect Asian life, just like a Black Lives Matter type, I guess, and protect the Asian as a positive slogan. Just the opinion on that. Yeah. Sure.
I like that. Excellent. Thank you.
So I understand that you're not exactly for having a racial quota when it comes to hiring people, but it is my opinion that there are very few Asian Americans in the positions of power, both in Northern Virginia and in Central Virginia. And I was just wondering if there were Asian Americans represented in the superintendent's office in Fairfax County or anywhere in those counties where these problems were occurring, maybe those people would have said something and these problems would not have happened. So my question is, would you be open to seeing if there's a way to get more Asian Americans in the positions of power where decisions are made so that things like this would be prevented or at least communicated in a more transparent way to the Asian American people? Thank you.
Yeah, that's why I was proud to support Hung Kao and Harold. But I think, to your point, I'm a big believer. I'd love to say that 90% of life's problems can be traced to either poor or miscommunication. And the best way to fight bad information is with good information. listen, we're in the midst of the investigation. We'll find out where this leads us. But I can't imagine if there was a different perspective in the room when the Fairfax school system had the equity consultant that said equal outcomes for every student without exception, even if it means you have to treat some students unequally. I have to think that there'd be somebody in the room that had a different perspective as a either a Korean American or Indian American or Asian background, and would say, this doesn't sound right. This really is coming up to is this how we really want to operate? And I think not having that voice is really, really important, because those shared experiences get brought into the room, and they're giving that good information to push back on maybe some bad information. And I think that's really critical, having that voice, having that representation. But listen, the fact that you're here is making your voice known. You could be anywhere tonight, but you're here because you're passionate about this issue, but you're also a leader. Just by the fact that you're here, you're a leader. Because the easy thing would have been to stay home or go out and enjoy a nice dinner with the family, but you sacrificed to be here, and it's not lost on me. You could have been spending your time with anyone else but little old me, but you're here, and that says a lot too. And I think that's critically important to make your voice heard. And it also means your school board meetings, respectfully, but be at the school board meetings and talk to your school board members about what you're saying. And it's frustrating. I had a wonderful mother who she had fled Vietnam literally on one of the boats, and she told me she went to go talk to a Fairfax school board member about some issues and at TJ and merit, and so we should go back to a merit-based system. And she said the school board member told her to check her white privilege, but she kind of was looking over her shoulder like, are you talking to me? But that shows you a little bit. I know it's frustrating, but I think communication is so important. Making sure we have those lines of communication with our school board members, with those in city council and the superintendent's office. And if you don't feel comfortable speaking, send an email, write a letter. It's so important that they hear directly from you. Because it's one thing when I say this is a problem, and I know I have the Office of Civil Rights backing me, but it's another thing when it's not just me saying it. It's everybody in this room. And I think the one issue I would ask everybody to, and this is one of the biggest roadblocks to achievement, the biggest roadblocks to achieving progress is this: apathy. Reject apathy. Reject the sense that my voice doesn't matter. Reject the sense that if I write this email or if I show up at this town hall or this school board meeting to speak up, it's not going to matter. It does matter. And your collective voice is like a megaphone that is even larger than anything that I can do. And it helps us as we do this investigation to have your voice behind us so they don't think what I'm doing is in a vacuum. That makes sense.
Thank you so much, Honorable Miyares. Your valuable time is yours. We really appreciate it. I recently heard one story about the Asian gang. So, as you know, nobody can prevent the innocent person to the jail. I heard everybody know him about he's not that kind of person to kill someone. But he afraid the retaliation from other gang member. They threatened their family member. That's the reason why he didn't tell the whole truth. As your top prosecutor, if you're under your prosecutor, they cannot find the fact, truth. What can you do? Find the fact, truth, and then put out of jail the innocent person. Thank you.
Well, we have an actual innocence section in our office. It's cold cases and actual innocence and special investigations. And so we actually have used that, somebody that was wrongly accused of a case, and we used that to petition the court, and the court granted with us. I'm obviously very pro public safety, but I'm also a passionate believer in our system of justice and protecting the vulnerable. I have vivid memories of my uncle, Angel Miyares, sharing with me how he was taken in the middle of the night by Castro's secret police, all because he was handing out leaflets that were considered, quote, anti-revolution leaflets. So he was taken in the middle of the night, he was taken to an empty baseball stadium, he suffered the humiliation of a mock execution, and he's in his 80s now. It's still very, very raw when the people that have power exercise that unjustly against the innocent. His story is why I decided to become a lawyer, because I recognize there's something different about our country where you shouldn't be allowed to ever do that to somebody. So if there is somebody that has been wrongly convicted that is innocent, we'll make sure we have staffers here, my chief of staff and others, we'll get their information, or we can get them the information so they can send the information to our office and we'll take a look at it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rachel. I currently attend Centerville High School as a 10th grader, and I wanted to talk about my experience at school and how the Asians were discriminated there. I personally have not felt discriminated in any way, but my friend has. She was coming out of practice with her friends, and suddenly a group of people came up to her and called her a ching chong, and then one of my friends was crying, the other one, she didn't know how to respond at all because she has never been faced to something like that before. How should we respond to these kind of situations when we are faced with them?
The most important thing is to first speak out. You need to make sure that those the worst thing is to feel like nobody will care. People care. That story is enraging for me to hear that. So first of all, what I'd like to do is make sure that before we leave, I think Christine from our Office of Civil Rights is here. I'd like for her to get in touch with you so you can get us in touch with your friend. Because that happened at a public school. That's clearly a disparate impact, a racially targeted incident, and we need to be able to investigate that. Because if she was silent, I have a sneaky suspicion that school administrators don't even know that it happened. But that is exactly the type of bullying that is outrageous and unacceptable, and there's no room for it. The first thing a parent wants when they take their child to a bus stop or drop them off at school is just to know they're going to be in a safe environment when they're there. Even before, we want them to have a quality education, but I have 3 school-age daughters. That's the first thing you want. Just bring them home safe. And the fact that a child went through that is outrageous. And I know as a sophomore you probably don't view yourself as a child, but it's trust me, as a parent, my oldest daughter is a sophomore. I still think of her as a child. It's outrageous that your friend went through that. So I'd like my office to be aware of it and to investigate what happened.
Thank you.
And if there's anyone else that adheres to that, tell the school administrators and go to the Office of the Attorney General, the Civil Rights Office, to make sure we're aware of that.
Good evening, Attorney General Miyares. Thank you for coming to reach out to the Asian community. My name is Ann Tu Do. I have a question about election because I think this year we have like a lot of local elections, school board, and all the General Assembly. So could you let us know, I think I understand that you have an election integrity team, and what could you do in your capacity as Attorney General to ensure to all voters in Virginia to have a fair election so they can assure that their vote count? Thank you.
Well, your vote counts. And what I tell everybody is there's millions of people on this planet that would do everything in their power to have what you have, which is a voice in your government. And most people that woke up this morning on this planet don't have that. The last study I saw was roughly 70% of the globe lives in what could be called an autocratic regime, a regime that doesn't recognize people's dignity or their right to vote. And so first of all, you have something beautiful and precious, and people, some of which died doing so, to guarantee that every American, regardless of your race, regardless of your background, has that right to vote. That is an amazing, amazing, precious thing. I remember my mother taking me with her the first time she ever got to vote. And she never, ever, first time she ever had a voice in her government, she was 38 years old. That's how old she was. It was in 1984, the presidential election. And she took me with her to watch her go exercise for the first time. It was such a large moment. So first of all, even if you're not voting for the candidate that I would support, vote anyway. Because every time you do vote, every time your voice is heard, it's like a light to the rest of the world that for all of our problems, America still is that last best hope on earth. That's the first. The second is I'm a big believer that it should be easy to vote but hard to cheat. I think that should be easy. And I think it's important that people know, and all the registrars, everybody knows, hey, these are what the rules are. We have early voting in Virginia, so you can vote early. You could go to your local precinct, you could go in your local registrar online. But we do have an election integrity unit, but we found, generally we had great elections this past year in Virginia as far as they were run well. But, we had a company that was sending out text messages to individuals, giving them the wrong location to vote. And so we basically notified this entity that was sending out these text messages, stop. There's a variety of different laws you're potentially breaking. It did seem like it was inadvertent, and they put a stop to it. So I'm a big believer, let everybody know what the rules are, go vote, bring your photo ID to just make sure we have election integrity in that front, go vote, let your voice be heard, and exercise it. And if people are interested in who I'm supporting, they can find out later. It's way premature for me to tell you who maybe I'm endorsing. But more than anything, just recognize that it's one of the greatest gifts we have as an American. It's the fact you have this amazing voice, and don't let it be silent. And the way you don't let it be silent is you make your voice heard in the ballot box.
How do you know that the fact that less Asians are accepted and that less Asians receive scholarships are due to the fact that they're Asian, and rather that they fail to adhere to meet the requirements that the school needs?
Well, that's one of the reasons why we're doing the investigation. There's something called disparate impact, and that's something, a legal term, but when you see a policy change that leads to a huge decrease and impacts negatively a specific ethnic group, then that's why you're doing the investigation. And so when you see a policy change that leads to a 20-point decrease in Asian enrollment at Thomas Jefferson, that raises a lot of red flags as a lawyer. And I will tell you that 100 years ago in this country, the 1920s, you saw in a lot of these elite institutions, academic institutions, Ivy League institutions, particularly at Harvard, they decided that they needed to put a cap on the total number of Jewish American students enrolled at Harvard. And so they created this subjective, quote, character and fitness test that led to a huge drop and capped the number of Jewish American students. And This was in the 1920s, and we look at that now with horror. That is wrong. Well, what we've seen now is a new capping, a new limit of what seems to be at least some of these institutions of higher ed of Asian enrollment. I mean, I was just at a meeting earlier today in which some Indian American families shared with me that their child had perfect scores. One had an 800 on the math portion of the SAT. The other had a 790 on the math portion of the SAT. They both had over a 4.0, and neither one got into Virginia Tech, which is above the average SAT and average GPA of an average student admitted at Virginia Tech. One is at Penn State, one is now in Boston. So brilliant Virginians, way smarter than I could ever be, have to go out of state because they weren't able to be admitted into Virginia Tech. That is wrong. That is wrong. And so we're obviously looking what's happening at TJ, but if our institutions of higher learning are adopting practices that are purposefully discriminatory, if they're adopting similar mantras of, equal outcomes for every student without exception, that is a huge red flag for my office. And so that's what we're doing the investigation. But I don't want to see the best and brightest in Virginia that have perfect scores in their SAT not even be admitted into our flagship engineering school or our flagship tech school that we have at Virginia Tech. That breaks my heart, and that's frustrating and very expensive for the parents now to pay for out-of-state tuition for their child to go out of state. It's very frustrating to hear. I cannot tell you how upsetting it was for me when I heard that story earlier today.
All right, and
this is going to be our last question. We're going to have a time of essence that Attorney General we're going to have a continuous discussion, just not stop here today. So we're going to follow up, and we're going to have a continuous questions and working together with the Attorney General's office in Asian community. So this is going to be our last question that you can ask for right now.
Thank you very much to the Korean Community Center for hosting us tonight. I really appreciate your generous hospitality. 안녕하세요. And thank you, Attorney General Miyares, for being here. I really appreciate your time. I'm the mother. I'm the mother to 3 sons of South Asian descent from their father's side. And one of them has applied to TJ for this year in this application pool. And I think I'm probably not the only parent here who that's the case for. I'm sure there are others.
I can hear you.
Okay. I'll just speak really loudly. So my question is, they just sat for the essays, and they were basically equity essays. And it included what is your volunteerism, and give some examples of your leadership skills. And basically out of 5 questions, there was only one which was even anything to do with STEM, and that was math specific. And so what I wonder is, not only will my sons, or my one son in particular, I believe, be discriminated against for his name, his South Asian name, but I also believe that there will be viewpoint discrimination in these essays. And I'm wondering today, and I know that this is up in the air at the circuit court right now under appeal, but is there anything that you can do for this class of TJ applicants for either because of their ethnicity or their viewpoint in these essays? Is there anything that you can do for them to give them an equal opportunity and a crack at this year's TJ?
Yeah, so thank you, and I love your show. So what's happening, there is the federal lawsuit, Coalition for TJ, which is the concerned parents. That's in federal court, dealing with federal law, the 14th Amendment, which is equal protection law. Our investigation is with our state statute, which is our Virginia Human Rights Act. If we determine that they are indeed in violation of the Virginia Human Rights Act, we would notify the school, whether it's on the admissions policy or how to handle the national merit recognition. You're in violation of the Virginia Human Rights Act. This is how you can make sure you're not in compliance. If they then decide to tell us we disagree with you or we're going to ignore you, then we go to court. Then we take them to court. So that's the procedure. Obviously, if we find out that there is some type of policy that is having this horrendously disparate impact on Asian students, we would tell them whatever that policy is to end the policy. And so that would be what we would be doing. I think to your point about viewpoint discrimination, I think intellectual diversity is important. I think it's important to have a class with different viewpoints and not just some monolithic viewpoint. And I think that's so important because that's the only way we could survive as a country is recognize people are going to have different worldviews. You're going to want to worship God differently than I do. You're going to have different political views, and that's okay. That's what a diverse society has to look like. And you know, that's and I hope everybody recognizes that the fact that we're having this debate shows that we are indeed what I call the American miracle. Because in a lot of societies, you wouldn't be able to have this debate. The people in power would be able to dictate what is the policy, and this is democracy at its very best. And you know, at our core, we're a decent and noble country. We are, because we all come from different backgrounds. And if you ever doubt that we're not unique, or a unique country, when you leave here, you can go and find it on the internet. The opening ceremony of the Summer Olympics in Tokyo. I love the Olympics, always have. I love to see what the host country wants to show off as the best part of their culture. And you have the Parade of Nations, and it's an alphabetical order. It starts off with Greece. They get their first because they had the first Olympics. But after that, it's an alphabetical order. And 119 countries walk in to the stadium in Tokyo, in the Parade of Nations. And you get to that moment where they announce us, the United States. And when our delegation walks in, there's only one country out of 119 in which the delegation actually looks like the entire world. And that's the United States. That's the very best of who we are. The fact that to be an American means you can come from every country on the globe, achieve your dream. And so if your family came to this country seeking hope and opportunity, there's a good chance your family is a lot like my family. It's been the honor of my life to serve as your Attorney General, to serve as the people's protector. It's an honor to be here, and I look forward to being back. Blessings to you all.
Thank you so much for coming, and thank you, Attorney General, for hearing our concerns, and thank you for the Korean Community Center and Korean Association and Vietnamese and Chinese groups. And then here, everybody, you are here today, busy schedule, come here to raise your voice, and Attorney General. Let's have pictures before he go, and we promise you sometime you can take a pictures and 5 minutes. You got 5 minutes.
허 회장님, 허 회장님.
Oh, that's another. Yeah,
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Sao? Khỏe không? Lúc nào cũng vậy, lúc nào cũng vậy. The whole team. Can we go there take a picture of the whole team? Tất cả mọi người đó.
Don't cover his face, all right?
Hold on for a second, right here. Right here. Yeah, right here.
If you want to take a picture, everybody come up in the one time.
Can you take a picture of us? Okay, stand up.
Okay, yeah, move back, sorry. Move back.
1, 2, 3.
We need everyone to move back, please.
That's a perfect.
Away from the side.
Let me know. Send me a text, okay?
It's there, man.
Ngày 25 tháng 3 tụi cháu sẽ tổ chức một
livestream. That's okay.
Save the day.
Yes. Yeah, this one's on YouTube and this one on Facebook.
Oh, YouTube. So I just need to go to YouTube.
YouTube.
And then
You're looking for Phil Will.
Phil Will.
Can you go down?
Okay, good.
I will send you an email. Yeah, so I will contact you. I love stuff like that. I have a couple families. They're running for whatever. So that's why I said, if you don't understand the important education, it would be easier. And they see it tonight. Yes, thank you.
No, it's live. And then it'll be recorded.
Yeah, it's being the Facebook, you can go to Phoenix, the same thing. Phoenix with the S.
Thank you.
Huh? Yeah.
Nhiều quá nhà thờ ông Hiếu nhiều quá, ở đây nghèo quá, giúp ở đây nhà thờ ông Hiếu giàu quá, có đây nhà thờ ông Hiếu giàu quá, nhà thờ của Sáng nghèo. Anh chụp giùm nguyên nhóm nè,
Hết rồi, xong rồi.
Ông ngồi thì kia ông lên. Quá, kêu đi ăn đi uống lẹ lắm, mà đi tôi kêu nhiều lắm. bị đủ thứ hết. Còn đi ăn đi uống khỏi bị.
Kêu nghe được
Nghe có đồ ăn là
nghe thiệt
chứ còn có bánh mì mà không có chủ nhật nó có đợi đi đâu lấy đồ ăn. Việt Nam mình chỉ có mấy món thôi không?
hả?
Việt Nam mình có mấy món.
Mấy món thôi, mấy cái người mà ấy thôi, chứ còn ngoài ra mấy người ta trong
Việt Nam đi lên chụp với ông Mai Dơ.
dạ không.
Việt Nam đi lên chụp với ông Mai Dơ.
당연히 저희는 알아봤어요. 제가 소원이 너무 죄송하거든요. 정신이 없어요. 애들도 그냥 Oh my god. Very nice of
Oh, there's Chinese too. What's on the back? Yo, 진짜. Where's the Korean one? Justice for you compare them, right? 진짜, this is the part where you compare it, and then you teach that one. Justice for Chinese Americans. Justice for Chinese Americans. Where'd Andrew go? Wait, Andrew. No, go over there and start screaming, "Do you hungry?" Yo, tell it right now. Tell it right now. Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. I dare you, right? Except I'm way shorter. I wish I had all the money.
아니 빈 것만. 빈 여기다 치우면 되나? 돼요.
I played for 07. Do it.
Daniel, this is live.
I know. I'm famous too. I told him he said anything I get that a lot. Yo,
I forgot the question, but you asked a question. I kind of forgot what I read. There's something about it, but I can't remember. What's your? Oh, okay, yeah. That's a very interesting question. We have many running. So I think that the way you want sorry. Oh yes. So the way you put the question, I find that 3, 2, 1, ask someone 3, 2, and 1. Awesome. And I think
Yep. I got it. Dạ. Dạ vâng thì từ để em lên gửi cho. Dạ. Bây giờ em phải soạn cái này của em xong rồi đã. Em sẽ gửi cho tất cả mọi người.
Bà này rất là dễ thương.
Yes.
Bà này là ủng hộ.
Yep. I know.
Bà Kathy này rất là dễ thương.
Hãy quen quá bà.
This comment is for whoever. Tôi đi về.
Dạ vâng. Dạ vâng. Dạ em sẽ gửi cho trong em sẽ có cái group của mình mà cung cấp vậy. Dạ.